Good evening, comrades. This is your brother Jamala, also known as Brother Soldier 4D. Today we got a special topic. It covers the little bit of the situation of the Holocaust and then genocide. And just an overview. When we hear the word genocide and Holocaust, we think, immediately about the experience that the Jews had. And when we hear about genocide, we think about some of the people that were killed under King Leopold in Africa, in the Congo, in Namibia, people that were killed during that time by German settlers, way before the Holocaust in Germany. So we know that it's an ugly situation, and those two words do not ring positive things in our thoughts. So I wanted to talk about the Black African struggle and how similar signs that led up to the Holocaust in those times and genocide are ever so present in today's world. Now, one of the things we want to understand about these Holocausts, they do not come when you're at your lowest. They not necessarily come when you're at the poorest state economically. They come when you're at your highest achieving, like the Holocaust that happened in Germany with the Jews. They were in the highest part of their accomplishments. They made landmark achievements. And they were lawyers, doctors, and they were military officers, and they served in the military of the German armies, and they had houses, they had land, they had doctors' clinics, they had churches, synagogues, and everything. So what happened is the German nationals began to see them thriving better, or either they felt they were exploiting their own people and they began to move. Whatever it was, they didn't like what they were seeing for whatever reason. It was jealousy, and it could have been that the Jews were just doing only things for the Jews. Whatever the situation was, they were highly integrated into that society. So the nationals began to take back things little by little, but they had to demonize them and they had to isolate them from the mainstream society by talking about their facial features, making them have to wear identification tags, saying they were Jews. They made them close up their businesses. They made them close up their shops, made it illegal for them to do business there. They made them pay extra fines for any damages that were done whenever there was a revolt or uprising. And everything that happened that the Germans at the time did not like, they would blame the Jewish people for. And so these people had made contributions to the German society. But that wasn't enough. So, likewise, in the situation with the black African slaves in the United States, we've made the similar landmark achievements. We've become doctors, lawyers, we've become physicians, we've become educators and educated, and we also become officials in high levels of government, police officers, all of that. Same thing. Same. And we have now been faced with a lot of signs as though the clocks are being turned back. And so we have to be aware of these things, and we have to know what our history tells us, and we have to be able to learn from those historical events and be able to plan accordingly. Because if we don't, the same things that circled, the ugly things that circled around in the past can circle back around in the present day, in the near future. And so we have to be like the Jews. Never again will we go back. Never again. And we want to continually remind them of what happened and what they're doing today that may indicate that we're going back, and keep them held accountable. Don't get on that high horse about the European is tired of hearing our cries, tired of hearing us, and they don't want to have anything to do with it. They hate us. We were hated from the beginning. I expect we're going to be hated in the middle, and I expect us to be hated all the way through till we die. Okay, so that's a moot point. We don't need to get hung up on that. We need to be about what's going to keep us alive and what's going to keep us safe, and to look for signs of that's going to threaten that, and be able to take action and measures that we need to take. Now, going back to the first chapter of Exodus, you remember there arose a king that knew not Joseph, who didn't care to know about Joseph, who didn't care about the contributions Joseph and his people made toward the Egyptian civilization. Whatever he did to sustain and help sustain that civilization at the time that he was there, they did not care. And remember, they were well integrated and well assimilated into that Egyptian culture, to the point where when things took a turn to the south and they began to get punished and beat and suffered, they too had what was called an exodus, just like the Jews of Germany in Europe had an exodus. They were well integrated into high positions and they were moved out. Okay, so three things that they say that happened that led up to the Jewish persecution. Let's see. One, they were saying that you can't be a Jew and live among us. Okay, so they isolated them. They start pushing them out into different areas of the country. Then they say, two, you cannot live among us, period. And then three, they said, you cannot live. So they said that it went from one extreme to the next where they were killed. But it started off with ridicules of their nose, ridicules of their hair, their speech. They start looking at them as they labeled them. There's a couple of things that they labeled them as. They labeled some of them as Marxists. They labeled some of them as extreme liberalists, radicals, socialists, and communists. These are terms to keep the masses of the Germans looking at them in a way that justifies the actions that they're going to take on them. They portrayed them as like cockroaches, or like just like what's the word, like parasites. And these are certain things that we're seeing in the U.S. You know, they're looking at us like, well, nobody likes us, nobody loves us, everybody hates the blacks. They're saying the Hispanics don't like us, the African doesn't like us from the continent, the Europeans don't like us, the Chinese don't like us. Well, we can say that we've been hated since Africa has existed. We've been hated all these years. We've been hated, so it's nothing new. Okay, what we're hearing is that no matter what we've accomplished and no matter how much we've climbed up out of the pit that we've been placed in several times, we are, no matter how much education, no matter how much we do, we still a basic Negro, you know, of no use if they feel like they can't use us. So we have to begin to look at this and look at where this has taken us. So back in the time of the Exodus, they were well integrated. They went into an Exodus in Europe. They were well integrated. They went into an Exodus. And today, the black African is well integrated into the Western society. And don't think for a moment that an Exodus cannot happen to you. We are at high achieving levels, but you can see over the period of years that is becoming different. Now, this sad thing about going back to the Jewish Holocaust is that they used many of the Jewish elite to carry out those death camps and carry out those executions. And the Nazis were behind it in secret, telling the elite, this is what you need to tell your people. And this is what you need to do, is keep them from fighting back. Keep them passive, okay? And the other thing was to keep them compliant with the agenda that we Nazis have, so that we can carry out a successful plan, and maybe we'll throw in a few things for y'all. But you know that didn't happen. That didn't happen no more than it did with the Indians with Geronimo. With Geronimo, I believe it was Geronimo. They they subdued him. They used some of the Indians to catch him, or they kept it. And once they finished using him, they just told those other Indians to fall in ranks with your losing comrades. So we cannot afford to go back, and so we keep reminding the greater society that we are significant. We made significant contribution, and we want to be respected as that. But this is where I think that we're making the mistake as Black Africans. We're making it. First of all, we have what is called agitators, political agitators, that are feeling that we have no power as Black Africans, which we don't really have a lot of power. We have presence, we have symbolism, but we don't really have power. We don't have substance like we need. We have responsibilities, but we don't really have the authority to back up a lot of those responsibilities. We see our brothers getting beat up in the street. We can't impact that. Do you think that those police officers that overpower one man and unjustly beat him after they have him detained, do you think that they could pull that off in a different society like Africa, where there's a majority of Black Africans there? Do you think that those few white cops can pull something off like that in a different environment? No, they can pull that off because they have situational advantage, as I said in the previous lessons on ensnarement. They have positional and situational advantage. They have legislation that's slanted toward them to protect them. Okay, so they have a positional advantage. That's why you're going to mostly come up on the losing end, especially when you choose to do crimes in those environments. You choose to do crimes, you 90% you're going to lose. You're going to come up losing unless a crooked agent or a crooked cop backs you in aiding in the murdering of your brothers and your fellow men. So you got puppets up at the top, and you got puppets on the street. Just because it's mass people don't mean they're not puppets in there. So we have a Judenrate Council of Elders that was doing their own Jewish people in to a great degree, and you have a Judenrate Council similar here in the United States with our African people. And I'll give you two examples. Well, I don't even know. Let me see. No, I'll just give you an example. There's organizations, youth organizations in the United States that are ran by, how they're funded is another thing, but I'll just say that they're ran by in the Black communities, they're ran by people that look like you and me. They're Black people, but they have a different agenda. They will not, 9 times out of 10, you will not bring Afrocentric curriculum in there. You will not bring true history in there. 9 times out of 10, they're gatekeepers to keep out certain truths that need to be told to the young about their history so that they can see each other in a better light and treat each other right. Well, what they want to do is keep blinders on you so that you do not teach them the truth, so that we can continue fighting and killing each other because we see no value in each other, but we continue serving our masters' best interest because they're insecure and they don't want you to have any kind of ability to sustain your own self and to carry your own load. But you will get the blame for anything that goes wrong, but we're not empowered to control the curriculums that are passed out for our youth so that we can take the full responsibility. So we still hold, nobody's hands are clean in this situation. So the white people can talk about how much they don't like us and how much of a burden we are, but they created the entire situation. And then the blacks that participate with them are the other problem. So we're going to pick up on this in part 2, and we're going to get deeper into how these things uh, occurred and how we can keep that from happening to us. Peace, love, God bless you.